2 hours before my brother's loan was supposed to close, a bank manager looked me in the eye and said my signature was already on file. My father nodded like that settled it. My brother smiled like he had finally cornered me. And for one terrible second, everyone in that glass conference room treated my own name like a door they had already opened without me. What none of them knew was that I had spent 27 years in the county property records office, and I knew the difference between a real signature and a stolen one the way a nurse knows the sound of a failing breath. I also knew what was inside the old canvas tote under my chair. A certified copy of my mother's deed restriction. A county archive access log showing I had been locked inside the records room when they claimed I was signing papers across town. A notary journal request with an expired driver's license number. A collateral schedule where my mother's 32-acre farm had been hidden like a loaded gun on page 17. And one funeral reimbursement form from 3 years earlier, where my brother had found the signature he thought he could steal. Before that morning was over, the loan would not close. The bank's compliance director would stop calling it a family misunderstanding. The title company would refuse coverage. A state notary investigator would ask for the original acknowledgement. My brother's face would change in front of everyone. And my father, who had spent most of my life calling me the paper lady, would learn that paper was the only reason our family still had a boundary left to stand on. But that was not where it started. It started 3 weeks earlier, at my father's 70th birthday dinner, in a private room at a lakeside restaurant where the candles were warm, the rain was cold against the windows, and my family laughed before they understood what they were laughing at. Owen stood at the head of the table with a champagne glass in one hand, wearing a navy sport coat and a white pocket square, talking about the old grain barn like he had already turned it into gold. He called it Keene Heritage Events. He said the wedding venue would bring tourists back to the county. He said the road improvements would raise property values. He said people were tired of hotel ballrooms and wanted heritage, land, story. My father, Malcolm Keene, watched him like he had raised a governor. My stepmother, Carla, smiled at everyone with that soft church lady face she used whenever a cruel thing was about to be said politely. I sat near the end of the table in my gray county jacket, the same jacket I wore behind the counter at the records office, with my old tote hooked around my chair leg because the zipper had broken and I kept forgetting to replace it. I had come straight from work. There was still a faint black ink stain near my thumb from a recording stamp that had leaked that afternoon. Owen noticed it before he noticed me. "There she is," he said, lifting his glass toward me. "The only woman in America who can make a birthday dinner feel like a zoning appeal." A few relatives chuckled. I smiled out of habit, because in my family, if you did not smile at Owen's jokes, you became the joke. He went on about his project. White oak floors, a river stone fireplace, a glass wall facing the lake, bridal suite upstairs, farm-to-table dinners, antique tractors parked outside for photographs, summer ceremonies under string lights. He spoke beautifully. Owen had always spoken beautifully. When we were children, he could break a window and make my father proud of the angle of the throw. When he dropped out of community college after one semester, Dad called him restless, not irresponsible. When he borrowed money to start a landscaping company that folded before winter, Dad called it ambition with a tuition bill. When I stayed home during my mother's last 6 months, used every vacation day I had, learned medication schedules, drove her to oncology, paid utility bills, cooked soft food she could swallow, and recorded the deed. Restriction she begged me to record, nobody called it ambition. They called it what daughters do. After the main course, Owen's voice shifted. I knew that shift. It was the sound he made when the performance reached the part where someone else paid. Bridge financing closes Friday, he said. 2.8 million. Enough to finish the barn, finish the access road, lock in the kitchen build-out, and open before fall wedding season. Uncle Ray whistled. Cousin Beth asked if he already had bookings. Owen smiled wider. Deposits are lined up. People are waiting. This is not a dream anymore. This is execution. My father placed one hand on Owen's shoulder. Your mother would have loved seeing that land used for something that brought people together. The room went quiet for half a breath, not because anyone wanted to honor my mother, but because everyone knew which land sat under that sentence. 32 acres on County Road 9. My mother's farm. Her father's land before hers. The white barn that leaned but still stood. The creek strip where she had scattered my grandfather's ashes. The back pasture where wild blackberries grew over the fence. The place she made me promise to protect while cancer hollowed out her body but left her judgment sharper than anyone else's in the room. Owen turned toward me with the affectionate smile he used when he wanted a witness to become a prop. Mara, don't worry. Nobody is asking you to run a business. We just need you to stop treating a family project like it's a crime scene. If the farm is involved, I said, I need to see the documents. He laughed, and several relatives followed because laughter around Owen was almost muscle memory. Listen to her. The county counter clerk wants to audit a commercial loan. My father's smile tightened. Your brother is building something this family can be proud of. Then he can show me the full packet. Carla reached across the table and touched my wrist with 2 fingers, a soft little warning dressed as comfort. Honey, this is your father's birthday. Let's not turn tonight into paperwork. Owen reached under his chair and brought up a blue folder. He slid it across the table until it stopped beside my plate, nudging the fork I had not picked up again. It's just a consent acknowledgement. The bank wants clean family cooperation. That's it. Bring your license Friday, sign the acknowledgement, and go back to protecting dust. Uncle Ray muttered something about old land sitting useless. My father laughed, then looked at me the way he had looked at me all my life when I stood between Owen and consequences. For once, Mara, do not make the whole family wait while you decide whether paper matters more than blood. I looked at the folder. It was too thin. That was the first thing that bothered me. Real loan packets are thick, ugly, repetitive things. They contain schedules, exhibits, disclosures, definitions, security agreements, insurance requirements, environmental language, and enough signatures to make your wrist hurt. The folder Owen gave me had the shape of disclosure but not the weight of it. A summary. A consent page. A few selected numbers. Enough to make a person feel informed if that person did not know what missing paper smelled like. I opened the cover only far enough to see the borrower name, Keene Heritage Events LLC. Bridge Facility. 2.8 million. Collateral schedule attached. The visible summary listed the event barn parcel, road access, equipment, receivables, and a line that read, additional pledged parcel per Schedule B. Schedule B was not there. I closed the folder. I'll review everything. Owen's smile thinned. You stamp papers all day, Mara. Don't pretend you suddenly understand lending. A silence followed, not because he had gone too far, but because everyone wanted to see whether I would make the dinner uncomfortable by admitting he had. My father broke it. Your mother trusted you with paper because she thought you would protect the family, not choke it. That hurt more than Owen's joke. Owen had always used me. My father was the one who made it sound moral. I put my hand on the folder and said nothing. That was what they mistook for surrender. In truth, silence was the only thing keeping me from saying, right there in front of the candles and birthday cake and relatives who had never once visited my mother during chemo, that the dead woman they kept invoking had filed a restriction because she knew exactly what her son would do if nobody stopped him. I drove home in hard rain with the blue folder on the passenger seat and my mother's voice in my head. Not a perfect final speech, because real dying is rarely that organized, but fragments. Her breath catching while I helped her from the recliner to the bathroom. Her hand cold around mine in the car after radiation. Her face turned toward the kitchen window when she said, Owen thinks land is only sleeping money. 3 months before she died, she asked me to take her to the county recorder's office after hours. I had a key because I was senior clerk. She could not stand in line by then, and she hated being seen weak by people who remembered her driving school buses through winter storms. I wheeled her through the side entrance under a sky full of thunder while she held a manila envelope against her chest. Inside was a deed restriction prepared by an estate attorney in Redmond. No sale, mortgage, collateral pledge, transfer, easement, development encumbrance, or title cloud involving the farm without written consent from both named heirs and a separate recorded acknowledgement from me. "You're making me the bad guy," I told her, half joking because I was afraid of what Owen would say if he found out. She looked at me with the little patience dying people have for cowardice. "No. I'm making you the fence." I recorded the restriction myself. I stamped it, scanned it, indexed it, verified the parcel number, and watched it become part of the land's public chain. My mother insisted on keeping a certified copy in her recipe box because she trusted official records but trusted drawers she could see even more. "Do not explain fences to a man holding wire cutters," she told me that night. I did not understand then how much of my life would become that sentence. At home after Dad's birthday dinner, I spread Owen's folder across my kitchen table under the yellow light above the sink. My house was small, one story, white siding, a mortgage I paid on time, porch steps that needed repair, and tomato beds dear considered a buffet every summer. I had no lake house, no sport coat, no business articles clipped from the local paper. But I had a scanner, a county login, 27 years of record habits, and an old mug full of pencils sharpened to different lengths. The documents Owen gave me were exactly what I feared and not enough to prove it. The consent acknowledgement had my full legal name typed beneath the signature line, Mara Elaine Keene. That bothered me. Most people called me Mara Keene. County forms used Mara E. Keene. The farm restriction used Mara Elaine Keene because the attorney had insisted, and because my mother had wanted no ambiguity about which daughter stood at the gate. The summary showed the project collateral and referenced Schedule B without including it. I logged into the public county land records portal and searched every Owen-related entity I knew: Keene Heritage Events LLC, OK Development, Merrow Lake Hospitality Group, Keichi Holdings, Old Mill Road Ventures. Same registered agent. Same upstairs office suite above the real estate brokerage. Same pattern I had seen too many times in other people's messes. One parcel moved from one LLC to another, a deed of trust released and replaced too quickly, a private lender lien from Whitcomb Capital, a UCC filing on equipment Owen had described at dinner as if he owned it free and clear. Bad debt rarely looks bad from a podium. It looks bad in sequence. At 1:08 in the morning, I found the first thing that made my hands go cold. A preliminary title memorandum had been indexed under Owen's LLC 3 days earlier with a reference to parcel 14-08-229-003. I knew that number without checking. My mother's farm. 32 acres. County Road 9. The missing Schedule B had a shape now. I sat back and stared at the screen while rain hit the windows. Part of me still searched for an innocent explanation, because daughters who grew up trying to earn fair treatment become experts at giving unfair people one more chance in their heads. Maybe the parcel had been included by mistake. Maybe the title company had flagged it because of nearby road access. Maybe Owen intended to ask me properly later. Maybe Dad did not know. That last hope was the most dangerous. It was always easier to imagine my father misled than to admit he had chosen not to see. I printed the title reference, the entity records, the lien index, and the visible loan summary. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it Road 9_Loan_Review. On a yellow legal pad, I wrote one sentence: "They are not asking for consent. They are trying to cure a defect." The next morning, I arrived at the county records office before the public doors opened. Our office sat in the basement of a tan municipal building that smelled like floor wax, old paper, and wet coats whenever it rained. People made jokes about us because we had no windows and the fluorescent lights hummed, but I loved that place in a way I had never admitted out loud. Upstairs, commissioners argued about budgets. Across the hall, taxpayers argued about assessments. At our counter, people arrived angry, grieving, suspicious, divorced, newly married, newly widowed, convinced a neighbor had stolen 3 feet of fence or an aunt had hidden a will. The work was not glamorous, but it was honest. Names went where they belonged. Dates mattered. Margins mattered. A deed from 1894 could sit beside a plat map from 1932 and a mineral reservation from 1978, and if you knew how to follow the chain, the dead could still speak clearly. My coworker Vivian Shaw was already at her desk eating a granola bar over a stack of title requests. Vivian was 63, with short white hair, reading glasses on a chain, and a reputation for making real estate attorneys sweat by finding unreleased liens under misspelled middle names. She looked up when I came in and said, "You have the face of a woman who found something at midnight and did not like it." I put my toad on her desk. "I need you to tell me if I'm overreacting." She did not ask whether it was family. People who work with records know when paper has blood on it. I showed her the loan summary, missing Schedule B reference, preliminary title memo index, Owen's related LLCs, the private lender lien, and my mother's deed restriction. Vivian read quietly. She never made dramatic faces while reading documents. That was why I trusted her. After several minutes, she tapped the page. "You are not overreacting. Whoever put this together either missed the restriction or knows about it and is trying to get around it. My brother knows." Vivian took off her glasses. "Does your father?" I thought about Dad saying blood and paper like he had been waiting years to put those words in a boxing ring. "I don't know." Vivian's expression told me she thought I did. "Mara, if this closes with a defective consent, even if you win later, you could spend years unwinding it. The lender records, title gets clouded, your farm becomes a lawsuit instead of land. Developers love exhausted owners." I knew she was right. I also knew Owen would count on exactly that. At 9:03, my phone buzzed. "Owen." I let it ring. Then a text appeared. "Don't start digging holes because you're scared of progress. Friday. 10. Valley Trust. Dad expects you there." A second later, Carla texted. "Sweetheart, Owen said you seemed upset. Please remember your father's heart. Sometimes we honor the dead by helping the living." Helping the living. That was what they called it whenever Owen needed someone else to pay for being Owen. When he wrecked Mom's truck at 19 and I lost my summer tuition savings to help cover the deductible, that was helping the living. When he maxed out Dad's credit card for landscaping equipment that sat behind the garage until it rusted, that was a young man learning business. When I stayed beside my mother's recliner while she vomited into a plastic basin at 3 in the morning, nobody called it helping the living. They called it Mara being good with details. I did not answer Carla. I filed a formal internal request for the full preliminary title memo because as senior records clerk I could access index supporting documents tied to a county parcel reference. I did not use a shortcut. I did not call in a favor. I entered the request under my employee ID, printed the confirmation page, and put it in my tote. If this became ugly, and family money always became ugly once paper started telling the truth, every step had to be clean enough for strangers. By lunch, I had called Marrow Title. The assigned examiner, Alan Pierce, sounded rushed and annoyed until I mentioned Parcel 14-08-229-003 and the recorded deed restriction. His voice changed. "Are you an owner?" "I am a restricted consent holder under a recorded instrument." Papers moved on his end. "Ms. Keene, I can't discuss a borrower file without authorization." "Then I'll ask generally. If a collateral schedule includes a parcel subject to a recorded restriction requiring separate wet signature acknowledgement, can a scanned consent form cure that?" Silence. "Generally, no." "If the consent acknowledgement was notarized when the signer was not present?" A longer silence. "Generally, that would be a serious problem." "Thank you." He lowered his voice. "If you have documentation, bring it before closing." At 4:46 that afternoon, I signed into the locked archive to retrieve the farm parcel jacket. The keypad recorded my entry. The camera above the door recorded my face. I did not know then that those ordinary systems, the ones my family mocked as basement bureaucracy, would later become the line between my name and my brother's lie. Friday morning at Valley Trust Bank, I wore the gray wool coat my mother bought me when I became senior clerk. It was not expensive, but it fit my shoulders, and I needed something that reminded me I had a spine. Valley Trust occupied a brick building on Main Street with white columns, brass door handles, and a lobby full of framed photographs showing bank presidents handing oversized checks to school teams and food pantries. My father loved that bank. He had kept his business account there since 1982, back when he ran Keen Hardware before the big stores swallowed half the county and Owen convinced him to sell the building to fund his first development venture. I arrived 15 minutes early with my tote and a printed list of questions. Owen was already in the second-floor conference room, of course. Men like Owen are early when they expect to win and late when they owe money. He stood near the window talking to Trent Holloway, Valley Trust's vice president for commercial lending, though most people in town still called him a bank manager because that sounded friendlier. Trent was in his 40s, with a narrow tie, white teeth, and hair combed too carefully to be trusted. My father sat at the table with a paper cup of coffee, tapping one finger against the lid. Carla sat beside him, hands folded, wearing cream and looking like she had come prepared to be disappointed in me. Owen saw me and clapped once. There she is. The woman of the hour. Trent smiled. Miss Keen, thank you for coming. We appreciate your cooperation. I haven't cooperated yet, I said. Owen laughed. County humor. My father did not laugh. Sit down, Mara. I sat opposite Trent, not beside Dad. Owen noticed. Trent opened a folder. Today is simple. We need your acknowledgement that you have no objection to a temporary collateral position connected to Keen Heritage Events Bridge facility. This does not transfer ownership. It is a limited consent. I'd like to see the full collateral schedule. Trent glanced at Owen, then back at me. The relevant portions are summarized here. I did not ask for the summarized portions. Owen's voice dropped. Mara, don't do this. Do what? Act like you're smarter than everyone at the table because you know how to look up old deeds. I looked at Trent. Full schedule B, please. Trent's jaw tightened, but he slid several pages from under his folder and placed them in front of me. Not all of them. Just enough, he thought. Event barn parcel. Road easement. Equipment. Receivables. Escrow account. Then, on the third page, parcel 14-08-229-003, 32 acres, County Road 9, secondary collateral pending family consent acknowledgement. My mother's farm, dressed in bank language. This is the farm, I said. Owen leaned back. It is temporary. It is pledged. Trent folded his hands. Technically, it is supporting the credit facility until improvements reach a value threshold. Technically, if Owen defaults, the lender has a path to the farm. My father slapped one palm against the table, not hard enough to be violence, but hard enough to remind me he was used to being obeyed. Your brother will not default. Then why does he need Mom's farm behind the loan? Owen's face darkened. Because banks require collateral. That is how lending works. You would know that if you had spent your life building something instead of hiding behind a county counter. I kept my voice even. The recorded restriction requires separate wet signature acknowledgement after full disclosure of any pledge or encumbrance. Trent's eyes flicked toward Owen. It was quick, but I saw it. We have prepared an acknowledgement. I won't sign it today. Carla whispered, Mara, please. My father leaned back as if I had struck him. Owen's chair scraped. You are not serious. I am very serious. Trent tried to smooth the air. Ms. Keen, timing is important. Contractors are waiting. Deposits are tied to this facility. Delaying could cause damage. Then closing should not have been scheduled before securing valid consent. Owen pointed at me. You see what she does? She weaponizes paperwork. She sits underground stamping dead farmers' names and thinks that makes her powerful. My father looked at me with a coldness I had spent decades pretending was firmness. Your mother trusted you with paper because she thought you would protect the family, not choke it. I gathered my copies. I will review with counsel and the title examiner. Until then, I do not consent. Trent stood. Perhaps we can reconvene early next week. Owen laughed once, sharp and ugly. No. She knows exactly what she's doing. She wants this to fail so she can keep 32 acres of weeds and call herself loyal to a dead woman. I looked at him. If the project is sound, it can survive transparency. His smile vanished. My father said my name, not as a plea but as an order. I did not answer. I walked out through the lobby, past the framed community photographs, into the cold, and my hands only began shaking when I reached my car. Through the windshield, I watched Owen and Dad under the bank awning. Owen talked fast, hands moving. Dad listened, nodded, then looked directly across the lot at me. There was no concern in his face. Only accusation. As if I had embarrassed him by refusing to walk politely into a trap. That weekend, the pressure became organized. First came individual texts. Then calls. Then the family group chat, where relatives who had not visited my mother once during hospice suddenly became experts in what she would have wanted. Aunt Lila wrote, "Your mom believed in family unity." Uncle Ray wrote, "Sometimes business requires trust." Cousin Beth wrote, "Owen says you're holding up jobs for local workers." Carla left a voicemail saying my father's blood pressure had been high since Friday and she hoped I understood what stress could do to a man his age. Owen sent nothing for almost 24 hours, which worried me more than insults. Owen only went quiet when he was building something. Sunday afternoon, I drove to the farm. County Road 9 ran west out of town past cattle fences, a closed feed store, and a church sign with crooked black letters that read, "Peace begins at home." My mother's driveway was gravel, half swallowed by grass because I could only get out there twice a month. The farmhouse had been empty since she died. I kept the utilities low, the taxes paid, the roof patched enough to hold. Owen called it wasted. I called it waiting. I walked the fence line with my coat zipped to my throat and the old survey map folded in my pocket. The white barn leaned slightly but stood. The field behind it had gone wild with winter weeds. Near the creek, the boundary marker my grandfather set was still visible, a rusted iron pipe with faded orange tape. I crouched beside it and put my hand on the cold metal. My mother once told me land remembers whether you respected it. I thought she meant something sentimental. Now I understood she meant records, fences, taxes, hands in dirt, and the willingness to be disliked by people who wanted shortcuts across what was not theirs. When I got home, there was a Valley Trust envelope taped to my front door. Not mailed. Hand-delivered. Inside was notice of a revised meeting Tuesday morning to resolve outstanding family acknowledgement concerns. At the bottom, in Trent Holloway's neat signature, was a line stating failure to appear could be interpreted as refusal to cooperate with a family financial obligation. I laughed when I read it, not because it was funny, but because anger sometimes comes out wearing the wrong coat. A family financial obligation. That phrase did so much work for people who did not want to say coercion. I scanned the letter, saved it, printed 2 copies, and called Vivian. She answered on the second ring. "They're moving faster than they should," I said. "Then they're afraid of something. Or they think I am." She snorted. Men who underestimate clerks deserve clerks. Monday morning, before I had finished my first cup of coffee at work, Owen came to the records office. He came through the public entrance wearing a camel-colored coat and the expression of a man entering a place beneath him. There were 3 customers waiting, a contractor needing a permit copy, an older widow asking about a survivorship deed, and a young couple recording their first home purchase. Owen ignored all of them and stood directly in front of my window. "We need to talk." I kept my hands on the counter. "Take a number." A customer looked up. Owen's smile tightened. "This isn't funny. Neither is interrupting county business." Vivian, from the next station, did not look up, but I saw her pen stop moving. Owen leaned closer to the glass. "You are using your job to sabotage my loan." The room went still. The widow turned slowly toward him. My face burned, but my voice stayed even. Any records I reviewed are public or properly requested under my employee access. You expect people to believe that? You just happened to dig into my private business after refusing to help? Your loan packet references a recorded county parcel. That makes the chain reviewable. He laughed, but too loudly. Listen to her. She talks like a manual because she knows normal people can hear the truth. She doesn't want me to build anything. She wants Mom's farm to stay dead with Mom. Vivian stood then. She was not tall, but she had a way of rising that made rooms behave. Mr. Keene, this is a county office. You can request a record, lower your voice, or leave. Owen turned on her. Stay out of my family. The young couple quietly stepped back from the counter. The contractor took out his phone. Vivian's smile became dangerous. When you accuse a county employee of misconduct in the public lobby, you are no longer keeping it in the family. Owen noticed the phone then. He stepped back, lifted both hands like he was the reasonable one, and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Fine. Mara, when this project collapses and people lose jobs, remember that everyone saw you choose paperwork over family." He left before I could answer. My knees went weak only after the door closed. Vivian came to my station and placed one hand on the counter. Document it. I nodded, opened an incident memo, and wrote down the time. My father arrived 2 hours later. He did not come to the public counter. He waited in the employee parking lot until Vivian made me take lunch. I found him standing beside his truck in the wind, wearing the brown work coat he had kept after selling Keene hardware. His hair looked thinner in daylight. That almost softened me until he opened his mouth. You humiliated your brother at your workplace. Owen came to my workplace and accused me in front of customers. Because you are using county access against him. I am using county records to protect Mom's farm. Your mother's farm, he said, and the way he said it made the word sound selfish. Your mother was my wife before she became your excuse. I took a breath. Did you know he put the farm in the collateral schedule? Dad looked away. That tiny movement had more truth than anything he had said so far. He told me it was temporary. You knew. I knew your brother was trying to finish something important. And you knew he needed my signature. His eyes flashed. Always your signature. You act like putting your name on something makes you queen of the whole family. Mom made the restriction because she knew Owen would do this. His hand came up, not to hit me, but to point close enough that I could smell coffee on his breath. Do not put words in a dead woman's mouth. I don't have to. She put them on paper. He stepped back like the paper had struck him. For the first time, I saw fear under his anger. Not fear for me. Fear that the story he preferred might not survive the record. He lowered his voice. If this loan dies, your mother's farm dies with it. Owen has already borrowed against equipment, contracts, future deposits. There are contractors, deposits, lenders. If he fails, they come anyway. You think a restriction saves you from reality? You either help this family control the outcome, or strangers pick it apart. That was the moment I understood the loan was not just a new project. It was a rescue attempt. Owen had not built toward success. He had borrowed toward collapse. The farm was not one piece of support. It might be the last clean thing close enough for him to grab. Dad, I said quietly, how much does he owe? My father looked at me, and the silence between us turned heavy. That is not your concern. It became my concern when my land appeared in his collateral schedule. Your land. He shook his head bitterly. You always wanted to be the one who got to say no. No, I said. I wanted to be the one somebody asked before taking. He left without saying goodbye. I went back inside, washed my hands though they were not dirty, and found 3 new messages. One from Carla, your father is shaking. Please don't make him beg. One from Owen, if you keep abusing your office, I will make sure the county knows. One from an unknown number, Ms. Keene, this is Alan Pierce. Please call me before tomorrow's meeting. I called from the stairwell. Alan sounded strained. The borrower supplied a new document. What document? A signed acknowledgement. My back touched the concrete wall. Signed by whom? He paused. By you, allegedly. I closed my eyes. Somewhere above me, a door opened and shut. People walked through the building carrying normal problems. Tax bills, permit copies, marriage records. I stood in the stairwell with my brother's next move unfolding exactly where I feared it would. Send me what you can, I said. I can't send borrower documents without authorization. Then tell me the notary. Another pause. Denise Rook. Date? Last Thursday. My eyes opened. Last Thursday at 5:20, I had been in the locked archive. The system knew it. The camera knew it. And soon, everyone else would too. Tuesday morning, I did not go to Valley Trust alone. I brought Vivian. Not as an attorney, not as a formal representative, but as someone who understood records and had no emotional debt to Malcolm Keene. Owen hated her presence immediately. The revised meeting had been moved to a smaller upstairs conference room with frosted glass walls that gave people the illusion of privacy. Trent Holloway was there, looking more tired than Friday. Owen sat beside him with a folder I had not seen before. My father stood at the window. Carla sat with her purse in her lap, eyes red, already positioned as someone harmed by my refusal. When Vivian and I entered, Owen leaned back. This is a family matter. Vivian smiled. Then why is the bank here? Trent cleared his throat. Ms. Shaw, unless you are counsel or a party to the transaction, I am here because Mara asked me to review county record references. If you want me excluded, put it in writing. Trent said nothing. I sat. Vivian sat beside me and opened a notebook. Owen slid a page across the table. Good news. We do not need to keep arguing. The acknowledgement issue is handled. I looked down. For a moment, the room became very far away. There it was. My name. Mara Elaine Keene. A signature that looked enough like mine to make my skin crawl. A notary block beneath it. Denise Rook. Date, last Thursday. Location, Merrill County, State of Oregon. The document said I had personally appeared and acknowledged consent to the temporary collateral pledge of parcel 14-08-229-003. Personally appeared. Thursday, 5:20 p.m. I felt Vivian go still beside me. Owen watched my face with open satisfaction. My father looked relieved. Carla clasped her hands like a prayer had been answered. Trent said, as you can see, the bank has received the signed acknowledgement. We invited you as a courtesy to clear any remaining concerns. I placed both hands flat on the table. I did not sign this. Owen sighed. Here we go. My father closed his eyes. Mara. I did not sign it. Trent's voice became careful. Ms. Keene, are you alleging forgery? I am stating fact. I did not sign this. I did not appear before Denise Rook. And at 5:20 p.m. last Thursday, I was inside the locked county archive under employee access control. Vivian slid her notebook toward me but did not speak. Owen laughed, though the laugh had a crack in it. Convenient. The access log will show it. He leaned forward. You can make paperwork say anything. That's your whole job. Vivian's pen stopped moving. Careful. Owen ignored her. This is what she does. She turns every family decision into a records contest. She did it when Mom was sick. She did it after the funeral. She made Dad sign forms just to move equipment. She thinks if she files enough paper, the rest of us need her permission to breathe. I looked at my father. You believe I signed this? He looked at the page, then at Owen, then at me. The pause was maybe 2 seconds. It told me everything. I believe, he said slowly, that you become emotional when the farm is involved. My throat tightened. You think I signed away Mom's farm and forgot? Carla whispered, grief does things to memory, honey. It was so soft, so smooth, so practiced that I almost admired the cruelty. Not unstable. Not liar. Just confused. Just grieving. Just a woman whose own name could not be trusted because trusting her would inconvenience men. Vivian closed her notebook. We're done. Trent straightened. The bank cannot disregard a notarized acknowledgement because Miss Keene has changed her mind. She did not change her mind, Vivian said. She disputed a signature. Owen stood. Who are you to speak? Vivian stood too. A title examiner who has watched better men than you lose property because they thought women at counters did not understand documents. Trent held up both hands. Let's keep this civil. I picked up the copy of the acknowledgement because Trent had slid it toward me, and copies given freely have a way of becoming useful. I will provide documentary proof. Until then, if this bank records against parcel 14-08-229-003 using a disputed acknowledgement, you are on notice. Trent's expression changed at those last 2 words. On notice. Bankers understand many languages, but risk language is their mother tongue. Owen saw the change and slammed his palm on the table. You are trying to destroy me. No, I said, standing. I am trying to stop you from using my name. My father said, your mother would be ashamed. I looked at him then, really looked, and saw not a father trying to guide 2 children, but a man who had built his old age on the idea that Owen's success would redeem every bad choice. No, Dad, I said. I think she would recognize the room. That was the first time I ever said something to him that made him look away. The fake signature became the center of everything. By Wednesday morning, Owen's story had spread ahead of the evidence. He told relatives I had signed the acknowledgement during an emotional conversation and was denying it because I wanted control. Carla told people I had been under strain since Mom died, which was a gentle phrase that let everyone hear unstable without anyone having to say it. My father stopped calling and let other people call for him. Aunt Lila left a voicemail saying, Mara, if you are confused about what you signed, that is nothing to be ashamed of, but ruining your brother's business because you're embarrassed is not right. I saved it. Cousin Beth texted, Owen says the bank has your signature. Why are you lying? I saved that too. At work, the county administrator called me upstairs at 10:15. His name was Howard Bell, and he was the kind of man who kept 3 pens in his shirt pocket and believed every problem could be solved by using the phrase, appropriate process. He closed his office door carefully. Mara, I received a concerning call this morning from Owen Keene. I sat very still. Concerning how? He suggested you may be using county systems to access records for personal reasons connected to a family dispute. There it was. The professional blade under the family blade. The parcel is in a county indexed loan-related title memo. I filed formal requests where required. I can provide documentation for every search. Howard looked relieved and uncomfortable at the same time. I know your work history here. This is not an accusation. It becomes one if it goes in a file without my response. He nodded slowly. Fair. Please send me a written summary of your access and the related public record basis. I already have it. I pulled a folder from my tote and placed it on his desk. Howard blinked. Of course you do. It was the first time all week I almost smiled. I work in records. He reviewed the first page, then looked up. Mara, off the record, do you need help? The question nearly broke me because it was the first one that sounded like concern instead of pressure. I swallowed. I need the archive access log for last Thursday and the preservation request for camera footage processed quickly. On the record, I can do that. Thank you. By noon, the access log arrived. Badge entry, 4:46 p.m. exit, 6:11 p.m. Archive camera preservation approved. At 5:20 p.m., I had been exactly where I said I was, in a locked county room with no public entrance, retrieving a parcel jacket under my employee ID. Then I drove to the county licensing annex during lunch to inspect Denise Rook's notary journal. The clerk brought a certified copy of the relevant entry after I paid $12. My alleged signature appeared in the small box. My full legal name. Date. Time. Document type. And beside it, a driver's license number. I stared at the number until the clerk asked if I was all right. It was my old license number. Not my current one. The one that expired before renewal in 2022. I knew where Owen could have seen it. 3 years earlier, after Mom died, we had submitted funeral reimbursement forms before the estate account opened. I had attached a copy of my old license. Owen handled the packet because Dad could not deal with paperwork. That evening, I pulled the 2021 funeral folder from the plastic bin in my hall closet. I keep documents by year because I am exactly the sort of woman my family mocks until they need proof. The reimbursement form was there. I placed it beside the fake acknowledgement on the kitchen table. The signature was not perfectly identical because someone had stretched it to fit the new line, but the break in the K of Keen matched. The pressure gap after the M matched. Even the old license number matched. My brother had not simply forged my name. He had reached back into the week after our mother died and stolen my grief's handwriting. I sat down hard. For a few minutes, I was not angry. I was tired in a way that felt older than my body. I remembered Owen at the funeral, standing beside Dad in a dark suit, accepting casseroles and condolences, telling people Mom wanted us to move forward. I remembered myself in the church basement kitchen, writing checks and collecting receipts while Dad stared at a wall and Owen stepped outside to take calls. I remembered signing that reimbursement form with swollen eyes and cold coffee beside my hand. He must have kept a copy because even then, some part of him saw my signature as future material. That thought did what softer grief could not. It hardened. At 8:14 that night, after Vivian came over with soup and sat across from me while I built the chronology, I emailed Valley Trust's Regional Compliance Director, Patricia Voss. I did not write like a wounded sister. I wrote like a records clerk. Deed restriction. Missing Schedule B, disputed acknowledgement. Archive access log. Notary journal with expired identification. Funeral reimbursement form with matching signature source. Potential forged consent tied to collateral pledge. Formal notice that any recording against the parcel would be contested. I copied Alan Pierce at Marrow Title. I copied myself. I did not copy Owen, Dad, Carla, or Trent. Then I printed the sent email and placed it in my tote. The next day, Owen tried one more public pressure campaign before the final meeting. He chose the farm because he knew that was where my spine and my wound were closest together. I drove out after work and found 3 vehicles near the gate, Owen's black SUV, my father's truck, and Carla's sedan. Aunt Lila was there too, wrapped in a raincoat, arms crossed like a disappointed juror. Owen had brought a contractor I recognized from town and a man in a fleece vest who looked like money pretending to be casual. I parked behind them and got out slowly. The pasture was wet. The old barn stood behind them, gray against the sky. Dad looked exhausted, which was how he looked whenever Owen had spent his energy and needed me to feel guilty for the bill. Owen spoke first. Good. You came. Why are you on the farm? Because maybe you need to see what you're killing. He gestured toward the barn. This could be restored. Weddings. Jobs. Tax revenue. Families. You want it sitting empty because Mom filled your head with fear. The man in the fleece vest gave me a polite nod. Ms. Keene, I'm with Whitcomb Capital. We have an interest in seeing the project stabilize. So the private lender had a face now. Good. I turned to him. Then you should be concerned about undisclosed collateral defects. Owen stepped between us. Do not start. Aunt Lila shook her head. Mara, your mother loved this place, but she also loved your brother. She did. That's why she knew him. Dad flinched. Carla's eyes filled immediately, but I no longer trusted tears that arrived on schedule. Honey, she said, nobody wants to hurt you. But you have been alone with these papers and memories for so long. Sometimes grief makes protection look like control. There it was again. The soft accusation. Confused. Emotional. Alone. Owen seized it. Exactly. You're not thinking clearly. You're sitting in that house with old forms, convincing yourself everybody is stealing from you. The bank has your acknowledgement. The notary has your license. Dad remembers you saying you didn't want to fight anymore. I looked at my father. You remember that? He looked at the ground. Owen answered for him. He remembers enough. The wind moved across the field. I thought about my mother's wheelchair tracks in the recorder's office. I thought about the access log in my tote. I thought about the fake signature stolen from funeral paperwork. There are moments when people expect you to defend yourself emotionally so they can call you emotional for defending yourself. I did not give them that. I took out my phone and photographed the vehicles, the people, the contractor, the Whitcomb representative, and the gate. Owen's face changed. What are you doing? Documenting who came onto restricted property to pressure a consent holder during a disputed collateral review. The man from Whitcomb stepped back. I was not aware this was disputed at that level. You are now. Owen's mask slipped. You miserable little clerk. My father said, Owen. Not stop. Not apologize. Just Owen, as if the problem was tone. I looked at Dad. You brought a lender to Mom's farm to pressure me. I brought people who are trying to save what your brother built. No. You brought people to stand on land she protected and tell me I was crazy for protecting it. Aunt Lila started crying. Carla reached for her. Owen opened his mouth again, but the man from Whitcomb cut in. Mr. Keene, I need to speak with our counsel before I continue any discussion. He walked to his car. Owen stared after him, then turned on me. You just cannot stop yourself. No, I said. I cannot stop documenting. I left them there and drove home with mud on my shoes and my hands steady on the wheel. That night, Owen texted me one sentence: tomorrow you will fix this, or I will make sure everyone knows you abused your county job to destroy your own family. I saved it, printed it, and placed it behind the other pages. By then, the folder was thick. Heavy, even. My whole life, they had treated my paper like clutter. They were about to learn clutter could have chronology. The final meeting was supposed to be at 10, but I arrived at Valley Trust at 9:20 because people who plan traps dislike witnesses who arrive before the curtains are set. The lobby smelled like coffee and toner. Rain streaked the front windows. A teller looked up, recognized me, and immediately looked down. I rode the elevator to the second floor with my tote pressed against my hip and found the conference room door closed. Voices moved behind it. Owen's. Trent's. My father's. I heard my name once, followed by Owen saying, she'll fold when Patricia sees the acknowledgement. She always needs somebody official to tell her what family already knows. I stood in the hallway and waited. At 9:37, a woman in a black blazer stepped off the elevator carrying a leather folder and a tablet. She was in her late 50s, with silver hair pulled back and direct eyes. Ms. Keene? Yes. Patricia Voss. Regional Compliance. Thank you for sending the materials. She did not smile, but she shook my hand firmly. Behind her came Alan Pierce from Merrow Title and a younger man from the title insurance underwriter. At 9:46, another woman arrived, short, serious, carrying a state badge wallet. Nora Feld, Notary Compliance Unit. That was when the conference room door opened and Owen stepped out. He stopped so abruptly my father bumped into him. I wish I could say I enjoyed the look on his face. I did not. Enjoyment would have required distance, and I was still too close to the wound. Patricia entered first. Let's begin. The room rearranged itself around authority. Cruel people are loudest when they think they control the room. Give the room a higher authority, and suddenly they discover indoor voices. Trent sat at the head of the table but no longer looked like the head of anything. Patricia took the seat beside him and opened her tablet. Alan sat near the wall. Nora Feld sat across from me. The title insurance representative opened a laptop. Owen and my father sat together, Carla between them, clutching tissues though no one had cried yet. Vivian arrived at 9:58, slipped into the chair beside me, and wrote the date at the top of a fresh notebook. Owen stared at her like he could make her disappear by hating her hard enough. Patricia began. This meeting concerns Valley Trust's bridge facility for Keene Heritage Events LLC and a dispute regarding collateral consent tied to parcel 14-08-229-003. No funds will be released during this meeting. Owen sat forward. What? We were told. Patricia looked at him. No funds will be released during this meeting. Trent swallowed. My father turned to him. You said this was a formality. Trent did not answer. Patricia continued. Ms. Keene, you dispute the acknowledgement dated last Thursday? Yes. I did not sign it. I did not appear before Denise Rook. I did not consent to the collateral pledge. Owen leaned back with a cold smile. She signed and regretted it. Patricia tapped her tablet. Mr. Keene, you will have an opportunity to respond. Nora Feld opened a folder. I reviewed the notary journal entry supplied by Denise Rook. It lists Mara Elaine Keene as appearing at 5:20 p.m. last Thursday with an Oregon driver's license ending in 4418. That was my license before renewal, I said. My current license ends in 9072. Nora nodded. We verified that. Ms. Rook's journal lists expired identification. Owen's smile faded slightly. People keep old IDs. Nora looked at him. Notaries are required to verify current identification at the time of signing. Patricia turned to me. Ms. Keene, you provided an access log. I slid the certified copy across the table. My employee badge entered the county archive at 4:46 p.m. and exited at 6:11 p.m. Entry and exit require badge authentication. Camera footage has been preserved. My father's face had gone pale, but he still spoke. Could someone else have used your badge? Vivian answered before I could. The footage answers that. Patricia looked at Trent. When did the bank receive the acknowledgement? Trent shuffled papers. Friday morning. From whom? He hesitated. Owen said, from my office. My assistant uploaded the full borrower packet. Patricia's eyes moved to him. Your office uploaded the acknowledgement? As part of the borrower packet, yes. The title representative spoke without looking up. The upload originated from an IP address assigned to Keene Heritage Events Office Network. Owen's jaw tightened. I removed the funeral reimbursement form from my tote. My hands were steady. This is the form my brother handled after our mother's funeral in 2021. It includes the old driver's license number used in the journal and the signature that appears to have been copied onto the acknowledgement. I slid it across. Nora examined it first. Then Patricia. Then Alan. Nobody spoke for almost a minute. Silence, when held by the right documents, can be louder than shouting. My father whispered, Owen? Owen's face changed, but only for a second. Then he recovered. This is insane. She works with documents all day. She could make a comparison look however she wants. Vivian laughed once, quietly. That is not how scans, metadata, or notary journals work. Patricia ignored the exchange and opened another file. During review triggered by Ms. Keene's notice, we identified an undisclosed private lender lien involving Whitcomb Capital and related LLCs. Mr. Keene, Why was that not disclosed in the borrower schedule? Trent closed his eyes. Owen looked at him. My father looked at Owen. Carla whispered, "What lien?" Patricia continued, calm and devastating. The credit committee approved preliminary terms based on representations that the event barn parcel and related improvements were not subject to competing priority claims beyond those listed. That appears inaccurate. Alan Pierce spoke next. Mero title cannot insure the loan as structured. Not with a disputed acknowledgement, an unreleased deed restriction, an expired ID notary entry, and undisclosed lien exposure. My father gripped the table. Owen, tell them it's a mistake. Owen stared at the folder, and for the first time in my life, I saw him without the performance. No golden sun. No visionary developer. Just a cornered borrower who had run out of other people's confidence. Then he turned toward me. Mara can fix this right now. Not denial. Not remorse. Just the old family reflex reaching for me. She can sign a clean acknowledgement and this becomes paperwork. My father turned to me too, and for one awful second I saw the pattern try to resurrect itself. Owen damages. Dad panics. Mara fixes. But Patricia spoke before I had to. No, Mr. Keene. This does not become paperwork. This becomes an internal fraud review. Trent stood. Patricia, I think, sit down, Trent. He sat. The room went airless. Nora Feld closed her folder. My unit will open a formal review of Denise Rook's commission. I will also request the original acknowledgement and communications related to the signing. Owen pushed back from the table. This is a family dispute being blown out of proportion. Patricia looked directly at him. No. This is a credit facility supported by a disputed notarized document, an expired identification number, a likely copied signature, and undisclosed lien exposure. The bridge loan is withdrawn pending investigation. My father made a sound I had never heard from him before. Not anger. Not grief. Something smaller. Withdrawn? Yes, Patricia said. Valley Trust will not proceed. Owen turned on me so fast Vivian's hand moved toward her phone. Are you happy? You killed it. You killed everything. I looked at him and finally said what I should have said years earlier. No. You built it on stolen consent, and it collapsed under its own weight. He stared at me. My father stared at the table. Carla cried silently into a tissue. Trent looked like a man already. Calculating severance. Patricia gathered her documents. Ms. Keene, thank you for bringing this forward before funds were released. Before funds were released. That phrase settled into me slowly. Before the lien recorded. Before the title cloud formed. Before Owen could turn my mother's farm into leverage and then call my resistance the problem. The meeting ended not with shouting, but with chairs scraping, folders closing, and people who had walked in expecting my surrender leaving with their eyes lowered. In the hallway, my father caught my arm. Not hard, but I looked down at his hand until he removed it. Did you have to do that in front of everyone? Even then, after the fake signature, the hidden lien, the expired ID, he was mourning the exposure more than the act. You mean did I have to stop Owen where other people could see him? His face tightened. He is your brother. I am your daughter. The word sat between us, simple and apparently impossible. He looked older than he had that morning. For years, I had imagined that seeing him finally understand would feel like victory. It did not. It felt like watching a house you once loved reveal rot under the siding. Your mother never wanted this, he said. I stepped closer, not angry now, just done. Mom wanted the farm protected. You wanted Owen protected. Those were not the same thing. Then I walked past him, down the stairs, through the lobby, and out into rain that felt cleaner than the air inside the bank. The consequences did not arrive like thunder. They came in envelopes, website changes, quiet calls, unanswered messages, and the sudden way people stop saying a name at community events. Valley Trust sent formal notice 3 days later confirming withdrawal of the bridge facility. Mero Title issued a refusal letter stating it would not insure any transaction involving parcel 14-08-229-003 without court clarification or uncontested consent. Nora Feld's office suspended Denise Rook's notary commission pending investigation after Denise failed to prove I had appeared before her. Later, through a public disciplinary notice, I learned Denise claimed Owen's assistant had brought the document with a license copy and said I had already signed at the office. It did not save her. Notary law is one of the few places where, someone told me, still sounds as foolish in writing as it does out loud. Trent Holloway disappeared from Valley Trust's website by the end of the month. No announcement. No scandal headline. Just his photo removed from the commercial lending page and another vice president listed where his smile had been. Owen's event barn stopped like a clock with its battery pulled. Contractors filed notices. Whitcomb Capital accelerated repayment on one of his private notes. The unfinished road sat behind orange cones for weeks, rainwater pooling in the ruts. Every time I drove by, I thought about Owen at Dad's birthday dinner, glass raised, voice full of heritage, land, story. He had wanted story. He got one. The public version became smaller, as public stories often do. People said the loan fell through because of title issues. They said Owen had overextended. They said Valley Trust got nervous. They said families and land do not mix. They said everything except the simplest sentence: my brother tried to use my name without me, and my father let him because he needed the lie to be true. Carla sent a handwritten letter on thick cream stationery. It began with, "Your father is devastated," moved through, "Owen feels betrayed," and ended with, "Someday you may regret choosing documents over family." I placed it in a folder labeled family_correspondence and did not answer. I had spent too many years treating guilt like a summons. It was not. It was just mail. Vivian took me to lunch the Friday after the bank meeting at a diner where the waitress knew our orders and the coffee tasted burnt in a comforting way. "You know they will try to make you the villain," she said, stirring sugar into her cup. "They already have." "No," she said. "They tried before. Now they have to do it while explaining a fake notary and a dead woman's farm." I smiled for the first time in days. That complicates the story. It did. Relatives who had sent messages about peace became quieter once facts moved through town. Cousin Beth texted, "I didn't know about the farm being collateral." Owen said it was just support paperwork. Aunt Lila wrote, "Your mother loved that farm." I'm sorry if I spoke too quickly. I answered both politely without offering absolution. An apology is not a key that automatically opens the door it helped lock. My father came to my house 11 days later. I saw his truck through the kitchen window and felt my body react before my mind did, shoulders tight, jaw set, breath shallow. Old training. He stood on the porch holding his cap in both hands. I opened the door but did not step aside. That mattered. He noticed. "Mara." "Dad." He looked past me into the house, maybe expecting to be invited in, maybe remembering all the times he had entered emotional rooms without wondering if I wanted him there. "Can we talk?" "Here is fine." His cheek moved. "Owen is in trouble." "Yes." "He may lose the project." "Yes." "He could lose more than that." "Yes." He looked down at his cap. "He says he did not mean for it to go that far." I leaned one shoulder against the door frame. "Which part?" "The hidden collateral, the fake acknowledgement, the expired license number, or the copied funeral signature." He flinched at the last one. "Some words deserve to land." "I did not know about the signature," he said. "But you knew about the farm." He did not deny it. I thought if the project opened, there would be enough money to release it. Owen said the farm would only support the loan for a few months. "And you believed him because believing him cost you less than protecting me." His eyes filled unexpectedly, and that almost undid me because I had waited my whole life for my father's tears to mean he saw me. But tears can be about many things. Shame. Fear. Aging. Losing the son you invested your pride in. They are not always proof of love. You don't understand what it's like, he said, voice rough, watching one child reach for something big and the other one always holding him back. There it was. Even dressed as grief, the old truth stood naked. Dad, I said, I was not holding Owen back. I was holding the line Mom drew because she knew neither of you would. He looked at me then and had no answer ready. A truck passed on the street. Somewhere in my neighbor's yard, a dog barked twice. Finally, my father said, I miss her. That sentence was the closest he came to truth. My anger softened, but it did not disappear. So do I. You sound like her sometimes. Only when someone tries to take land she protected. A broken little laugh escaped him. He nodded, not enough to fix anything, but enough to show he had heard the shape of it. He did not ask to come in again. When he left, I closed the door and locked it, then stood with my hand on the deadbolt for a long time. Not because I was afraid of him. Because locking a door you were never allowed to close feels strange the first few times. Spring came slowly that year, and with it came a quiet I did not trust at first. I kept waiting for the next envelope, the next accusation, the next relative explaining that peace required my surrender. Instead, the farm needed work. Land does not care whether your family is speaking to you. Fence wire still rusts. Roofs still leak. Grass still grows through gravel. I started going every Saturday. I cleared brush around the white barn. I hired a roofer to patch the worst corner. I replaced the chain on the front gate and painted the mailbox black because my mother had always hated the faded green one but never spent money on things that still functioned. Vivian came twice wearing gardening gloves and complaining the whole time in a way that meant she was happy to help. We found old glass bottles near the creek, half-buried fence wire, a rusted horseshoe, and one blue marble that might have belonged to Owen or me or neither of us. I kept the marble on the kitchen windowsill in the farmhouse. Owen did not call. His attorney sent one letter claiming I had interfered with a business expectancy and damaged his reputation. My attorney, whom I finally hired after Vivian threatened to drag me there herself, responded with a 7-page letter attaching the deed restriction, fake acknowledgement dispute, notary review notice, bank withdrawal statement, and Owen's text threatening to accuse me of abusing county access. Owen's attorney did not write again. My father called once in May and left no message. Carla moved to her sister's house for a while, according to Aunt Lila. Trent's name became something people lowered their voices around at the bank. Denise Rook closed her notary advertisement. The orange cones by Owen's unfinished access road faded in the sun. None of it felt like revenge the way people imagine revenge. There was no single day when everyone apologized and music swelled and justice arrived wearing clean shoes. There was paperwork, silence, a roof invoice, legal fees, a new lock on the gate, and the ordinary labor of continuing after people who called you family tried to use your name like a tool. In June, while cleaning the farmhouse kitchen, I found a folded note behind the drawer liner. Not a hidden will. Not a secret fortune. Just a grocery list in my mother's handwriting. Coffee. Flour. Vinegar. Fence staples. Under it, written sideways like she had added it while thinking about something else, was one line: land only stays in a family if someone is willing to be difficult. I sat on the kitchen floor and laughed until I cried. That was my mother. No poetry when hardware would do. I framed the note and hung it beside the back door. By summer, I leased 15 acres to a neighboring farmer for hay, not because Owen had been right that land should work, but because work and exploitation are not the same thing. I kept the creek strip wild. I kept the barn. I recorded a fresh affidavit of non-consent regarding the attempted collateral pledge, and my attorney helped strengthen the restriction so no future lender could claim confusion. The day we filed it, the young clerk at the counter stamped the document and slid it back with a smile. I wanted to tell her people would call her job small until the day they needed her stamp to prove the world had not moved while they were not looking. Instead, I thanked her and walked out into sunlight. In September, Valley Trust invited me to speak at a community seminar about property fraud prevention for older homeowners. I almost said no because public speaking made my mouth go dry, but Vivian said, if you can stare down your brother in a bank conference room, you can explain deed restrictions to retirees eating cookies. So I went. 23 people came. Mostly widows, adult children managing parents' estates, a retired teacher, 2 farmers, and 1 man who asked 4 questions about quitclaim deeds and wrote down every answer. I stood at the front of a small library meeting room with a projector, wearing my gray coat, and told them to record restrictions properly, keep certified copies, verify notaries, read collateral schedules, and never let anyone tell them a signature was just paperwork. Near the end, a woman in the second row raised her hand. She was maybe 70, with silver hair pinned at the back of her head. My son says I worry too much about the house deed, she said. He says family should trust family. The room went still in that way rooms do when everyone recognizes the real question under the spoken one. I looked at her and said, trust is not proven by refusing paperwork. Trust is proven by being willing to put the truth on paper. She nodded slowly, and her eyes filled. Afterward, she held my hand with both of hers and said, thank you. I thought about my mother then. I thought about the deed restriction, the blue folder, Owen's toast, the fake signature, my father's hand on my porch railing, the conference room where everyone learned that paper is only small until it saves what someone tried to steal. That night, I drove to the farm at sunset. The hayfield had been cut, and the air smelled sweet and dry. I walked to the old boundary marker near the creek and found it leaning again, pushed by frost or time or some animal moving through. I pulled it up, cleared dirt from the base, and drove it back into the ground with a small hammer from my tote. Each strike rang through the quiet field. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just steady. When it stood straight, I tied a new strip of orange tape around it and stepped back. For most of my life, my family treated my caution like a flaw, my records like clutter, my questions like disloyalty, and my work like something small people did in basements while men with vision built futures. They called me the paper lady as if paper could not hold weight. They forgot deeds are paper. Liens are paper. Wills are paper. Boundaries are paper before they become fences. Signatures are paper before they become chains. And sometimes, when a family has spent years confusing silence with consent, paper is the only voice left strong enough to say no.